When Super Mario Bros. Wonder was getting announced, we found out that this game has, well, a lot of characters, and as these characters were getting revealed, I started wondering what each character's ability would be. Will Luigi have his high jump or Peach her flutter jump? The answer was no, we got pretty much nothing per character. However, what we got was way better. With the badge system, now abilities are tied to the badge you equip rather than the character you select, and with 24 unique badges, this is a great change of pace. That being said, not all 24 of these badges were created equally, so today I'm going to be ranking every single one. The criteria for ranking here is pretty simple. If a badge is useful, it'll generally rank higher than a badge that's useless. However, usefulness alone is not going to carry a badge to the top. For instance, imagine if there was a beat any level instantly badge. That would certainly be useful, but it would also pretty much ruin the gameplay experience. Thus, it's important to consider how much a badge actually adds to the gameplay, meaning how fun and creative it is. With that out of the way, we got a lot of badges to go over, so let's jump into the rankings, starting off with number 24. First up on this list is ironically kind of a pretty big spoiler. This is the last badge you unlock, and it's definitely the hardest one to collect. So how could it possibly be the worst badge in the entire game? Well, because it does this.
Onward and upward.
The sound off badge is nothing more than a massive troll, and while I think changing the sound effects like this is pretty funny, that's literally all it is. This badge isn't useful at all, it isn't particularly fun to use, and while I guess it's creative, I just can't really justify putting some goofy sound effects over other badges that actually have a purpose or at least change the actual gameplay. I think it's cool that this badge is in the game, but once you use it once, you probably won't use it again. It definitely earns its spot at number 24. Next up is the Invisibility badge. With the Expert badges, pretty much all of them are jokes. For Invisibility, on top of not being able to see your character, enemies can't see you as well. This certainly makes the game more difficult, but it also limits you so much and in such a bizarre way that I don't find this level of difficulty particularly fun. Like, imagine only being able to play Mario Kart with blooper ink on your screen. That would make the game more challenging, but definitely not better or more fun to play. Number 22 is the Coin Reward badge. With this badge, you get coins for defeating enemies, if you can believe that. The problem is, this badge only gives you gold coins, and in this game, gold coins are all but useless. If you collect 100, you get a 1-up, but you can't even spend gold coins in shops. You have to use purple coins or flower coins, and ironically, you can just buy 1-ups with purple coins in Poplin shops. So yeah, the problem with this badge isn't really the idea behind it, it's the fact that coins have essentially no purpose, ultimately making this badge's power-up pretty irrelevant. The next 4 badges are extremely similar. These are the badges that convert power-ups to a specific item. The first one here is the All Firepower badge, which turns every item you get into a fire flower. I understand how this could be useful, but if you really need a fire flower, there's probably going to be one in the level you're already playing. On top of that, you can already hold items, so this kind of makes these badges a bit obsolete. I don't think I ever used any of these badges when I played, they just feel like filler, and the fire flower gets last place because it's the most boring of the power-ups simply because the other 3 are completely original. At 20, we have the All Bubble Power badge. I love the bubble flower, but it's also just not really something you usually need. It creates a bunch of bubbles that you can jump on, similar to the bubble Yoshis, and it's really fun jumping from bubble to bubble. However, when it comes to usefulness, if you really need to jump further and higher, there are other badges that can just straight up give you those things, so this badge isn't really ever needed. Next is the All Elephant Power badge. The elephant fruit can be extremely useful in this game. It makes you stronger, and you store water in your trunk to put out fire or grow flowers. However, if you need an elephant fruit, once again, the level will just about always have one available. Like, if a level requires a power-up to get a collectible, it just makes sense that that would be the power-up featured in the level anyway. Otherwise, it would just be horrible game design, so while this one is useful on paper, again, not really useful in practice. Finally, we have the All Drill Power badge. Of the 4 item badges, this is probably the most useful, because this one lets you drill into ceilings, reach hidden areas, so it might actually make sense to use this in levels that weren't built around the drill mushroom, because it'll allow you to explore plenty of different areas. Again, I think all 4 of these badges are pretty obsolete, but of the 4, I would say this is the best one. The next badge on this list is an honorable mention. This badge isn't actually in the game, but instead it's a badge you can unlock in real life by hitting the subscribe button. Yep, that's right, we have the subscribe badge, and this one's power-up is it makes me really happy. Seriously though, if you're enjoying the content and want to see more, hitting the subscribe button is the best way to actually do so, because otherwise there's just a chance YouTube stops recommending our stuff, and we got banger videos coming out, so help us hit 250k by hitting that subscribe button. Next up is the Rhythm Jump badge. This one gives you coins for jumping to the rhythm of any level's music. I know I just said that coins are worthless in this game, and I still believe that. However, I loved the rhythm-based mechanic of Ninja Disco, and this badge basically takes inspiration from that stage, so I have to admit, it's pretty fun. That being said, if we're talking about sheer usefulness, this one's also in contention for last place, as much as I love the idea behind it. Unlike the other coin badges, the coin magnet is actually fairly useful, simply because it can collect purple coins as well. Like I said before, purple coins are essentially the only real currency of Mario Wonder, since they're the only coins that can actually be used in Poplin shops. Regardless, you don't really need this badge to collect any coin in the game. If they put a coin in a level, they intend for you to collect it, so there's really nothing necessary about this badge, which just makes you able to collect coins without going straight to them. It's also worth noting that even purple coins will become obsolete eventually. For someone like me, who has every collectible, including every standee and badge, I will pretty much never use the coin magnet again because it's practically useless for me, unless I guess you count making this video. The Auto Super Mushroom badge is another badge tied to items, but instead of changing items into something else, it just gives you a mushroom at the start of a level. I actually think this one can be a bit useful. If you're struggling in a level, it basically just gives you one extra hit off the start. What holds this one back from being any higher is simply the fact that it's kinda boring. Like, giving the player a mushroom at the start of a level is nice to have, but there's nothing revolutionary about this. The other badges in this game are simply way more fun to use. Our first action badge of the video, at number 14 we have the Dolphin Kick badge. I actually like this badge a lot. It gives you a little boost of speed underwater, and also allows you to break bricks. This badge takes water levels, which are pretty notoriously boring in Mario games, and actually makes them quite fun. However, the thing that holds this badge back is the fact that it's only useful in water levels. I love the idea of having different badges, with different purposes for different levels. In fact, I would say this is one of the things that makes the badge system so cool, and if I'm ever in a water level, I'm practically guaranteed to equip this badge. However, if I'm trying to create an objective ranking, because this badge has a more niche purpose and isn't even useful in most of the levels in the game, I have to rank it as the lowest action badge. The floating high jump badge basically just gives you Luigi's jump from Super Mario Bros. 2 or Super Mario 3D World. Mario Wonder has a ton of characters, and instead of each character having a unique attribute, I think it's kinda cool to make these abilities basically equipable. That being said, Luigi's high jump has always felt a little bit weird to me. With its floaty nature, while I do appreciate the extra height, I also just feel like I'm way more likely to mistime my jump because of this weird floaty mechanic. This might just be a me problem, or as my comments like to point out, a skill issue, but overall the other action badges just feel more fluid in my opinion. Next is the Add Exclamation Blocks badge. Admittedly, I did not use this one too much in my playthrough of Mario Wonder, but the concept itself is really cool. It takes a page directly out of Super Mario World's book. In that game, after you unlocked a Switch Palace, you could reveal different colored exclamation blocks, which would make levels easier by creating new paths or even giving you power-ups. The concept is basically the same here, however, it's in the form of a badge. The exclamation blocks are basically added question mark blocks like in Super Mario World, and once again, they can open up secret paths depending on the level. It's not the most fun badge, but I just love this nod to Super Mario World. You can tell this game takes a lot of inspiration from that game, and it's one of the main reasons Mario Wonder is so good. Like, Super Mario World is arguably the most important 2D platformer of all time. Number 11 is the Fast Dash badge. If I were to guess, this one takes inspiration from Toad's moveset in Super Mario Bros. 2 and 3D World. In those games, Toad is the fastest character, but he also has a shorter jump. However, with this badge, your jump isn't affected at all. You would think that would make this badge absolutely broken, but honestly, the speed isn't that different. This would probably be most useful for something like sandy levels where you have to naturally move slower. Ultimately, if you just want to go fast, I think this is a nice badge to have, but for me personally, I would rather just have new ability. Entering the top 10, we have the Crouching High Jump badge. This was a mechanic that every character had in Super Mario Bros. 2, where if you held a crouch for long enough, you would start glowing and could perform a higher jump. I was pleasantly surprised to see this mechanic return in Super Mario Bros. Wonder as a badge. Jumping is the name of the game in 2D Mario, so something that makes you jump higher is always going to be pretty sick. I also just think the jump you get here does feel more fluid than the floating jump, which is why this one's a bit higher. However, you do have to charge it, which makes it a bit slower to use. I don't actually mind the crouching mechanic at all though. In fact, I think it's what makes this badge so fun and unique. However, because you need to take a couple seconds to crouch before jumping, it's not the most versatile of badges because you won't always have time to crouch. So ultimately, it does lose a few points regarding its usefulness. Number 9 is the Timid High Jump badge. There's actually no triple jump in Super Mario Wonder, and this is kind of the closest thing to it. It might not look as cool as the triple jump since there's no front flip animation, but it's actually even more busted than the triple jump because you don't need movement speed to perform these consecutive hops. In fact, you can even use this badge on sand, making it one of the best badges to use in desert levels since sand usually slows you down and causes you to gain less height from jumps. The thing that holds this one back though is again how useful it is. Again, this badge is low-key busted. However, like with the crouch jump, you might not always have the opportunity to use it since you have to perform a few little hops before getting the higher jump that you want to, so this badge isn't going to be useful in every single circumstance. Next is the Wall Climb Jump badge. With this one, if you're climbing a wall, you can press the jump button to get a little boost upwards. Obviously, it's not going to be useful for every jump, since there isn't always a wall available, but when there is a wall, you're probably going to be glad you have this badge equipped. My favorite thing about this badge is how it kind of reminds me of Celeste. That game is all about scaling a mountain, and so there's all kinds of wall climbing mechanics, including a wall jump akin to this one. Celeste is one of the greatest 2D platformers of all time, full stop, and if we're talking about sheer movement, I genuinely don't think that there is a better 2D game. A badge that takes inspiration from, or is at least similar to that game's movement, just has to be good objectively. The Safety Bounce badge is basically an eject button. If you're about to land in a pit, in lava, or poison, this badge will bounce you out of there once for each fall. Now, I think you can very easily brush this badge aside as nothing more than an easy mode for bad players who can't time their jumps. However, I think this badge is arguably more useful for skilled players. You can exploit this to death, skipping entire sections of levels on top of earning collectibles in some very unconventional ways. I imagine that this badge is absolutely broken for something like speedrunning, so while you don't need this badge if you're very good at the game, you may just want to mess around with it because it can be very fun and open up some new opportunities. I'm just gonna be honest here, the Jet Run badge is stupid. That's to be expected with an expert badge, but this one will send you absolutely uncontrollably flying whenever you try to run. You could even jump midair for a brief period of time. In a lot of games, there's a mechanic called Coyote Time, getting its name from this Looney Tunes phenomenon. It basically allows you to jump when you're technically not on a ledge anymore, and it accounts for input delay and also human reaction time. This badge takes this mechanic to an extreme. I'm not here to tell you that this badge is very practical, but damn is it fun. It's especially fun in the challenge levels dedicated to it, but it's also fun if you just want to screw around in pretty much any level. Sure, it'll actively make said level a bit more difficult, but if anything, that just makes the game more replayable. Even if you hate this badge or find it annoying, I genuinely think it's completely fair to put this one at number 6 just because of how fun and interesting it is. Now we've reached the top 5 badges in this game, and at number 5, we have the Grappling Vine badge. This is easily one of the most iconic badges in this game, and it's also extremely unique. Rather than simply changing the way you move a bit, it gives you an actual device that you can use to zip around levels. Being able to grapple onto walls is also pretty useful. Like with the Wall Climb badge, you won't always have a wall available, of course, but this one's just so fun to use. It's also actually pretty difficult. I mean, it basically turns you into Spider-Man, or Spider Mario, and it's unlike anything we've really seen in a Mario game, so it definitely takes some time to get used to. Ultimately though, with how fun, creative, and challenging this one is, the Grappling Vine badge is definitely one of my favorites. Moving on to a badge that's definitely a lot more tame, the next badge we have is the Sensor badge. All this badge does is detect when you're near an important item, like a Wonder Flower or Wonder Coin, and then it'll start lighting up, making sounds to notify you that you're close. Obviously, this one isn't like particularly fun, but in my opinion, it's the most useful badge in the entire game, and it's not particularly close. If you are going to try and achieve 100% completion, this badge can save you a lot of time. Like, if you've already gone back and beaten a level multiple times, but you're still missing a Wonder Coin, this will spare you a ton of backtracking since you at least know what part of the level the item is at. In my opinion, this is the perfect amount of hand-holding since it doesn't just explicitly tell you how to find an important item, it gives you a hint which mainly just prevents you from having to aimlessly walk around in the wrong area. Overall, for those who do want to 100% this game and don't want to look up a guide, this is probably the most important badge you'll collect throughout your entire playthrough. Number 3 is this Parachute Cap badge. This was one of the first badges we saw in the reveal for Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and it's also the first badge you collect. Frankly, I think this is the perfect badge to introduce the player to the badge mechanic. It makes the game easier, but it's also a completely original concept. On top of that, it's just very fun. Being able to stall in the air allows you to perform jumps that you wouldn't have been able to do before, and you can also climb on walls indefinitely if you know how to use this thing. When I think of the badge system, this is usually the badge I think of because it's just so perfect. It does everything a badge should do, while also teaching players what badges can be by being essentially a permanent power-up you can just always have. Because of all that, I think putting it in the top 3 is completely fair. Now, what's completely unfair is this badge at number 2, and that is because this one is an expert badge. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm putting an expert badge, yes, the badges that are intended to be complete trolls, as the second greatest badge in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Number 2 is the Spring Feet badge. With this badge, anytime you touch the ground, you are forced to perform another jump. Now, to its credit, if you hold the jump button, you do get a higher jump than usual, but overall, it is pretty impractical. I know I said in the intro that usefulness is a major factor in how I'm ranking these, but I just love how this badge completely changes the gameplay. You're no longer playing Mario, this is Doodle Jump now. There's just something so fun about bouncing around like you're on a pogo stick, and it also makes levels so much more challenging. I would argue that the usefulness of this badge is simply the fact that it adds to the game's replayability. Being able to replay levels with this badge for some extra challenge is so fun. And I guess if you do disagree with me putting this badge all the way up at number 2, you'll probably agree with the badge we took at number 1. And now for number 1, the best badge in Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the Boosting Spin Jump badge, and honestly, it's not even close. This badge is so fun to use, but also so useful. It's kinda similar to Rosalina's spinning jump from Super Mario 3D World, but it's effectively a shorter double jump. This thing is so busted flat out. It's easily my most used badge in this entire game. It pretty much does everything you'd want it to. It can save you from imminent death, it can boost you to tall up platforms, it can make collectibles easier to grab, and if you told me that this badge could file your taxes, I would have to think about it. It just straight up does everything. Being able to jump and then think about that jump and make a correction is so overpowered, especially in a Mario game where your main thing is jumping. Usually when I do these lists, I try and put what I think is objectively the best at number 1, but this badge was my personal favorite to use, and on top of that, I really don't think there's a better badge in the game, so putting this one at number 1 was a no-brainer. But if you think I'm a no-brainer and all my opinions are trash, let me know down in the comments below. This was an extremely fun list to rank, and I don't think people give the badge system enough credit. It does such a good job of changing up the gameplay. That being said, the hardest part about this ranking was realizing that there's no floating badge based on Peach's float from Mario 2. I get that the cat badge kinda does that, but it's so weird that every character from 3D World has their ability as a badge, except Peach. Maybe that's just the Mandela effect, but I digress. If you enjoyed this video and want more Wonder content, I recently did a video ranking every Wonder effect in this game, so be sure to check that out as well. I'm Thomas from the Switch Stop, signing off. Peace.